Now, you said, and it's true, it only lasted for about 5
5
weeks.
weeks, yeah.
It started with you attacking X-Pac during a match he had with Steve Blackman, and ends a few months later. Just a question.
Did it, like, end the
I'm
as far
sorry,
as I know, it,
yeah,
like, was like 5 weeks,
yeah,
wasn't it,
5
or
weeks, I'm
something?
sorry. About 5 weeks later,
Yeah.
but I think even though
I do remember the time, the night that I was sorry, I believe it was San Diego. Um, I should have been on with Al Snow, and Jack Lanza came into me and said, "Sorry, people are complaining that they don't want to work with you." And I asked Al, and Al said it wasn't him, but I don't know. I know it wasn't Al, but said that people are, because you are a mess, and I as you are when you're deep into taking loads of stuff. I made excuses and said no, I'm fine, but they wouldn't let me wrestle that night, and that was the last thing. What actually happened was we went back. I went back from there, and it was around Thanksgiving time. I went for a 2-week assessment period at Talbot Recovery Center here in Atlanta. They suggested that I stay there keep there for 4 months. I'd already booked to go home for Christmas that year. I wished I'd have stayed there. I'm not going to say I wish, because it's no good wishing your life away. It's stuff you can't change, but I should have stayed in. I didn't. I came home. I went back to England for 2 weeks for Christmas. Some horrible things, just ridiculous. I knew I was going back into rehab in the beginning of January of 1999. I took a ridiculous amount of drugs, and to my everlasting shame, just wasn't, I might have been there physically, but I certainly not good father stuff, as far as me just being passed out in a chair for 2 weeks, and to the point of, and this is awful on my wonderful wife, but going out several times, but being so off my mind on drugs, forgetting to get her a Christmas present. And that's something I've, it's so then these are bad times when people joke about, sometimes it's depending what day you get me on, but people will bring that stuff up, and I really wish you wouldn't, because sometimes it's just another day. But then if I start thinking about what I was actually like at the time, and the things that I was doing because of my selfishness and stupidity, it's not a nice place to put myself in, because I need to keep of a positive mindset to get through life and to help, because is what I do. Is a lot of things I do is listening to other people's problems and helping other people in my line of work. That's one of the things that makes me me. And I've put that bit of my life behind me 20 odd years ago, and 20, was it now, 23 years ago. And it's just, it's, I say I've got no regrets, and the reason I say I've got no regrets, because I think it's very easy, if you have regrets, or if you live in the past. I have this, I've heard this saying. It wasn't I didn't come up with it, but it struck a chord with me. I read this years ago. If you live in the past, you die every day. And I try not to go back into those places, because, and it was a horrible, not for me. It was a horrible time for my family. None of them should have had to been around me and seen me be like that. And that was all my stupidity and selfishness and all, and it was just awful. Once I went into rehab, I came out in April. There was a point in there where I was let out one day. I stopped. I didn't take anything from the 2nd of January 1999, and I there was one day when I was in there about a month before I was supposed to leave in April. So this would be about the March, where they let me out one day, and my stupid brain, I'd made my mind up that once I went in there, that's it. No more pills, no more nothing. Still holding on to one thing, and one day they were starting to let me out at certain points, and I thought, oh, I'll be going back to work soon. How am I going to get to sleep? Because I mentioned this on different things, but not only having a broken neck, I had a major sleep problem because of the broken neck for many years. How am I going to get to sleep? Because I could never sleep, and I still could never sleep but I managed to just cope with it. But one of those things, they let me out one day. I went straight to GNC, bought a bottle of Renutrient, went back to the place where they let me sleep. This is in like March, I think, of 1999. Went back in the afternoon. I had the afternoon off, took a mouthful of that. They couldn't wake me up. I woke up in hospital with a drip in my arm because they couldn't wake me up. And I just pulled it out and I went, that's it. Stop being an idiot. Stop making excuses. That's it. And that was it. And that was it. And so anything you hear about is people, because they don't know, and they'd rather just say before they think, that was the end of any of that stuff for me. And anything else is it becomes part of it. I'm quite happy to play into that part of the character as the old rogue that William Regal is, and not, as we did this recent episode of AEW, but that's not the case, and it hasn't been for many years. So it's 20 odd years now. So it was it 22 or 23 years.
It's been a while.
Yeah. So it's just not but I don't care but sometimes if you're writing about my real life, that's not what it is. We can get into other things. This story gets mixed up, and somehow I ended up with a broken ankle and a broken leg. And I heard it. I don't really know. I think I was home, and I don't know what was said at the time, or what people were saying, or what people have said in the back. I think I'd come back home for the weekend, and my wife, rightly so, had moved into another room, and I was sort of this hermit. Oh, there's another thing. So I broke my leg.
Right.
Somehow I think I climbed out of bed. It could have happened at the training. I can't. Again, I'm off my nut at the time. There's bits of this where I can't tell you, and anybody else tries to tell you that they weren't there. So that there was, if I'm in my own in my house, so I don't know what I'm doing. But so this is like the June or beginning of July or whatever. I break my leg and my ankle, and so I have to have that put in a cast. And what ended up happening, I think it was 3 months. I think so. Somehow I was getting the Renutrient GHB delivered to the house. My wife, rightly so, wasn't talking to me, living in another part of the house, keeping my children away from me, and rightly so. And so, when people go, you're whatever you're supposed to be. No, don't. I wasn't that's as low as it gets. I'm never purposely, physically or mentally abused my family, but that's a horrible thing to do. If you're not there for your family because you're too up your own backside taking drugs, that's a horrible thing to do. So I'll own up. I don't There's nothing clever about that, and it's an awful thing to admit to, but it's the truth, and that's what was going on with me at the time. So I broke my leg and my ankle, so I had a cast on my leg, and I was getting this stuff delivered to the house, and I completely lost the plot. I was getting this stuff, drinking it, passing out for about 20 minutes, waking up, absolute insanity. Some of the stuff that I remember, like writing, sitting there with a notepad, and basically in these moments, working out putting the worlds to rights, and having all these like, it's simple. Lord, you need to sort out, and writing all this rubbish. Then I'd fall asleep again, wake up, and look at this stuff that I'd written on these pages, and it was just complete gobbledygook, just nonsense. But that's what I was doing for
Wow.
quite a bit of that time. That stuff sent me completely loopy.